At 70, Mr. Bean better said, Rowan Atkinson, the quietly brilliant mind behind him, has finally confirmed what many people have long suspected, that the mute, clumsy, wide-eyed character who delighted the world for more than 3 decades was never just a comedic invention, but a deeply personal expression of how he sees human vulnerability. In a recent reflection on his life and work, Atkinson acknowledged that Mr. Bean has always been the distilled version of the awkwardness he felt as a child, a young man, and even a rising star. And hearing him say it plainly, without embarrassment or flourish, feels like the missing piece of a puzzle fans have been piecing together for years. He explained that the character's simplicity, his minimal dialogue, his reliance on physical expression, his almost childlike logic was rooted in Atkinson's own discomfort with words. Growing up with a stammer and a shyness that made classrooms and social gatherings difficult, he gravitated toward the kind of communication that didn't require perfect sentences or social confidence. Mr. Bean, he admitted, was the embodiment of freedom from those pressures. When he put on the suit and red tie, he could lean into the awkwardness rather than hide it. It was a way of saying that the parts of us we think are flaws might actually be the places where creativity begins. And that, Atkinson said with a small, amused smile, is what people seemed to understand even before he ever said it. The reason Mr. Bean worked everywhere, London, Cairo, Beijing, Sao Paulo, was because everyone recognizes the feeling of not quite fitting in. Everyone has moments where they trip over their own intentions or don't know what to do with their hands, or misinterpret the simplest situation. Mr. Bean exaggerated those moments, but he didn't invent them. He just held them up to the light with honesty and humor. Atkinson also acknowledged something else people long suspected, that the character, for all his chaotic energy, was crafted with extraordinary precision. The apparent randomness of Mr. Bean's behaviors came from hours of meticulous thought. Every raised eyebrow, every confused pause, every improvised-looking disaster was the result of a mind that treats comedy like engineering. This was no surprise to fans familiar with his background in electrical engineering, but hearing him speak about comedy with the same rigor he once applied to circuitry made his artistic process feel even more remarkable. But the most striking part of his reflection at 70 wasn't about technique or fame, it was about the emotional cost of embodying such a character. For years, people speculated that Atkinson was nothing like Mr. Bean in his personal life, and he finally confirmed that the distance between them is vast. He is reserved where Bean is reckless, deliberate where Bean is impulsive, quiet where Bean is desperate to be seen. Yet, he said, that contrast became exhausting over time. Playing someone so emotionally exposed required him to tap into feelings he didn't always want to relive, especially as he grew older. He described the end of major Bean projects not as a rejection of the character, but as a recognition that he had said everything he needed to say through him. The world grew noisier, faster, more cynical. Mr. Bean belonged to a gentler kind of comedy, one that didn't rely on sharp dialogue or satire, but on the universal humbling moments of being human. He hinted that while he may never fully retire the character, because how can one retire a part of oneself? His relationship with Mr. Bean has shifted into something more nostalgic than active. Yet there was no sadness in the way he spoke about it. Instead, he seemed relieved that he reached an age where he could openly acknowledge the fears, insecurities, and hopes that shaped both him and his most iconic creation. Fans suspected for years that the genius of Mr. Bean came from a place of vulnerability, and hearing Atkinson gently affirm it feels like being invited into a private truth. At 70, he stands not as just a comedian or an actor, but as a storyteller whose most famous story requires no words. What he has finally confirmed is that the character who made the world laugh was, in many ways, the purest reflection of who he once was, and a testament to the strange power of embracing what makes us different.